Well, hello there. So I have a bunch of makeup brushes here with me today because I am sharing with you my most used, most favorite makeup brushes in my makeup brush collection. When it's appropriate, I have some less expensive alternatives. I'm also going to be sharing how I clean my brushes and some extra little beauty tools that kind of go along with makeup brushes as well. You could have the best makeup in the world, the best eyeshadow palettes in the world, and you may wonder why it's just not looking quite right. And a lot of times it's because you just don't have the right tools that are doing the work for you. I do have a lot to go through. I'm just going to go through these brushes and tell you how I use them and why I like these specific brushes. So let's go ahead and get started. But first, if you are not subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you would consider hitting that subscribe button before the end of this video. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I do keep my face brushes in a triple acrylic container like this. I will link everything down below. It's not typically this crammed with brushes, but this is what I use. I like it just because it holds everything nice and upright, and I can have it towards the back of my space by my mirror. It doesn't take up a lot of room, and I can move it if I need to, and everything stays together. I have pulled my very favorite brushes. I do have others that I like in my collection, but these are the ones that just stand out to me, the cream of the crop. So for foundation, I typically use a damp sponge. Well, sometimes dry, but usually damp. That's just my preferred method. I have exactly two that sit at the top of all of my other foundation brushes. One is kind of the gold standard of foundation brushes, and the other is kind of new to the market and became a fast favorite. The Sigma F80 has been around for a long time. It's a great foundation brush. It's got a nice flat top. It's soft enough yet dense enough, and it just blends out things very easily, very seamlessly, and this is one that I always go back to. The other one that I really enjoy is the BK Beauty 101 brush. And this one is just so different than any other foundation brush that I've used. It's got this nice slant to it, and it just conforms to every area of your face. It's also very soft, yet has a nice density to it. And I actually find that I'm preferring the BK Beauty to the F80 and using it a little bit more. I find it to be a little bit softer, and I can get a little bit more coverage faster because there's more surface area. I just really like it, but you can't go wrong with either one of these. Let's move on to powder foundation and finishing powder before we get to powder brushes. This is a very comprehensive video. I did not leave out anything. I don't think. I have no idea how long it's going to be, so my apologies if it is longer than usual. So my number one favorite powder foundation brush is the Sonia G Face 1 brush. Prior to finding this brush, I didn't really think there was that much of a difference between powder foundation brushes, but once I found this, everything changed. It doesn't waste powder foundation. There's not much kick up. So it picks up everything and applies it to the face. It doesn't disturb anything underneath if you apply cream products or what have you. It's great for finishing powder as well. Again, not disturbing anything underneath. It's got the perfect softness and density ratio. It is the perfect powder foundation brush in my opinion. So that being said, I do have another brush that is really great for powder foundation. This comes in second for me because I really do love it. It's a little bit more dense, but it's great for days if you're in a hurry because it covers such a large area. This is the BK Beauty 105 brush, and you can see it's got more of a dome shape than this Sonia G. It's also a lot larger, but you can cover a large surface area with this brush. So for that reason, it's really great for powder foundation. So I said that I really loved that Sonia G Face 1 for both finishing powder and powder foundation. This is another that I really love for finishing powder. Particularly. This has kind of become my number one finishing powder brush, except it's out of stock all the time. So this is the Sonia G Master Face Brush. The dome shape, the softness and density, and the curvature just make it so perfect to apply finishing powder. And I do have a video on finishing powder. If you want to see that, I use that as the last step of my makeup a lot, and it just gives an airbrush diffused look, and this brush applies everything without disturbing what's underneath perfectly, and it's so soft and fluffy. I could just rub this on my face all day long. So for less expensive options to any of these powder foundation finishing powder brushes. I have two here. I have the Delium Tools Golden Triangle 959 powder blending brush. It's soft yet dense, not too soft that it won't apply anything appropriately. And I have the Real Techniques B03 brush, which is a really nice brush. I do find this to be a little bit shorter than what I prefer for this type of application, but if you use kind of a lighter hand with it, it applies things really nicely. So I wanted to give you those two options if you are on a budget. So before I move on to powder brushes, I have a great inexpensive, budget-friendly brush here that can work well for liquid or powder foundation as well as finishing powder. If you just need a multitasking brush and you are on just a strict budget, the e.l.f. Ultimate Blending Brush can actually do all of those things. Now, it's not as perfect for me as the brushes that, are my top favorites, but it's great if you're on a budget. Soft, yet just dense enough, not too dense. It just kind of does all of those things, and it's wonderful at a great price point. So for powder, I personally prefer a large, fluffy, dome-shaped powder brush. One of the two that I use the most is the BK Beauty 102 brush. It's just kind of everything that I love. It's fluffy, it's round, it's super, super soft. So actually I have three that I use pretty regularly. I kind of forgot about this one because this wasn't in my brush holder. I absolutely adore this double-ended hourglass veil brush. I don't typically like double-ended brushes, but this is the exception for me because you have this really, really soft, domed, fluffy powder brush on one end, and on the other, you've got this smaller domed, fluffy end that's great for getting under the eye to dust away powder, or you can use it for highlight. It's a great multitasking brush. It's great to use at your vanity or to travel with. And I've had great luck with any of IT Cosmetics powder brushes. They just work really, really well for me. I have three here. They're all super soft, super fluffy. They're all this kind of ball shape. I just really like using them. They feel really great on my face, and I like that with powder. I haven't found a less expensive powder brush that is as soft and that just functions the same as the others. But these are good if you're on a budget. So the first is the Luxie 518 large powder brush. It's very fluffy. It is soft, though not as soft as the others. It doesn't have that ball shape, but it still functions really well. And the other is the Real Techniques powder brush. This is a great bronzer brush too, by the way, if you like a fluffier bronzer brush. Now, this is what I used forever. And to me, it was very, very soft until I discovered these other brushes and I realized just how soft a powder brush could be. But if you're on a budget, Real Techniques brushes are very, very good brushes. I talked about sweeping powder away from under the eye with that double-ended brush. And technically you can do it with a big fluffy powder brush, but it is nice to have a smaller dedicated brush for that area to dust powder away. You can use those brushes to multitask as highlighter brushes, and I do that a lot. One of my very favorite brushes for that purpose is this Sigma F64, which is actually a soft blend concealer brush. And I haven't forgotten about concealer brushes. I'll talk about those in a second. I like this because it is a little bit more dense and can just quickly flick that powder away. If you get eyeshadow fallout, it's great for that as well. It's also great to dust powder away if you set your eyeshadow primer. You can use it as a highlight brush. Now, really, really quickly, I'm going to mention that this is one of the 4 brushes that is in my Sigma Favorites set. I know some of you have this set. There are a few of these left on the Sigma website, and if you get all 4 of the brushes, they are priced 20% off in this set. Now, I do have a Sigma code for everything else on the site, but I am talking about all 4 of these brushes in this video. So if you're wanting to get a bundle, this is a good way to do it. Oh, my coloring looks weird in this photo on screen. But anyway, these are 4 brushes that I use all the time, and I'll let you know the other ones as we go through the video. I haven't talked about this set in a while, and since it is still available right now, I wanted to let you know. But for highlighter specifically, I'm going back to that Sonia G face set with this mini cheek brush. There's something about the shape and the softness of this brush. I love that it's kind of flat. It just lays highlighter down so beautifully on the cheek, and the size is perfect for highlighter. So if you want a super soft highlighter brush that just really blends out highlighter to where, you know, a powder highlighter looks liquid, this is going to be a great brush for you. Now, if you're not wanting to get a whole set, the Wayne Goss 02 brush is another great brush, great quality that, in my opinion, has been completely worth the investment. Again, it will make a powder highlight look like a liquid when you blend it in. So beautiful for highlight. Now, I do have a couple of less expensive options. I have the e.l.f. highlighting brush and the Luxie 522 tapered highlighter. The shape of these is very nice and fluffy, yet tapered, and they both are very, very soft on the cheek and really nice for highlighter if you are on a budget. If you're someone who likes to use a brush for your under eye concealer, the Sigma Pro Airbrush Concealer number 57 is the perfect under eye concealer brush. It is fluffy and tapered just the right amount, and yet it's got a great density. It really does do a great airbrushed job under your eyes. Now, the Delium Tools 938 Blending Concealer Brush is a slightly less expensive option, but I think the Sephora is the way to go. I really, really love the Sephora brush. It's pretty much a perfect under eye concealing brush. For spot concealing, I have two brushes that I really like, and my preference goes to the less expensive brush, but I know some people really like having high-end brushes, so I'm giving you both options. So the brush that I really like using is the e.l.f. concealer brush. It's just great for tapping concealer where you need it. I like having a few of these around actually because sometimes I'll use it for an inner corner highlight too. This is just a really, really great little brush, and it's super, super cheap. So this other option is not actually a concealer brush, but the shape is really great for concealer. This is the Bobbi Brown Ultra Fine Eyeliner Brush. Either one of these are great if you want a high end or a low end. I have a few options for bronzer depending on the type of bronzer brush that you like to use. The one that I've been using the most is the BK Beauty 103 brush. It blends everything out very nicely. It's soft and fluffy, and nothing ever looks patchy. Everything just looks really, really great when I use it. Now, the next one I'm going to show you is shaped quite differently. This is the Benefit Hoola brush. I mean, you know, look at the difference in the two of these, but I do love them both. I really didn't think I was going to like this much, but it is very, very soft and fluffy, which is what I like in a bronzer brush. It diffuses bronzer really nicely, but in the instances where I'm using a bronzer that's more neutral, that can be applied a little bit heavier and be used as a contour in certain areas, you know, this works really great because it does have that dome shape. So I do like it for that. An inexpensive bronzer brush is the Real Techniques blush brush. This is a little bit too big for me for blush. I have kind of a small face, and I just prefer to use this as a bronzer brush. It's not quite as soft as these other options, but it's still really soft, and it's great for a budget-friendly option. My favorite all-time contour brush, the one I use all the time, is another brush that is found in my Stephanie Marie Sigma Favorites set, and that's the large angled contour from Sigma. This is the F40. Some people use this as a blush brush. It is very, very soft, but it's not so soft that you don't get product payoff. It just fits the contours perfectly. You know, in real life, you want your contour to be more diffused, and this just does a great option of creating those shadows while still letting your makeup look natural on a daily basis, which is, you know, what we want. My number one favorite blush brush that I use most of the time lately has been the Sonia G Soft Cheek Brush from the Sky Face set. I love the shape of it. I love the softness. It just gives a beautiful, beautiful application of blush that's never ever patchy. I just find it to be beautiful. Before I found this, my blush brush of choice, and you don't have to get it in a set, is the Wayne Goss Air Brush. It looks kind of weird because, you know, it's a flat brush, but when you apply your blush, you can just really splay it out like that. And this may have leftover blush in it, I don't know, but it blends blush out so beautifully. Now, if I have a blush that has hard pan or it's a less pigmented blush and I really have to build it up to see color payoff, I really enjoy the Sigma F10 for that. Now it's not as soft as the other two blushes, but it does just pick up those blushes that are a little bit less pigmented, or you're just kind of having a hard time getting color payoff. So I have one brush that I use for my cream and liquid blushes, and that is the BK Beauty 06. That is not what this brush was created to do, but I find it is the perfect size for the cheek, and it just applies cream cheek products beautifully. I know I keep talking about softness and density, but I mean, we're talking about brushes here, and I do love just the slight dome shape of the brush because you don't get any harsh edges. I just find that to be perfect for cheek application. The Huda Beauty Face Sculpt and Shade Brush. I really love this because it is super, super dense, and it's got a smaller end too if you're wanting to be more precise. This is great for contour and heavier application of cream bronzer. That's what I use this for. And this Fenty Beauty 125 face brush, holy cow, I could have like 3 of these and be so happy. It doesn't look like much. It doesn't even look big enough to apply bronzer, but when you're applying cream bronzer, I kind of tap it out, and I find that this applies it so beautifully and it diffuses it really nicely. So it gives a great even application, and I've been loving this. So for the eye area, when I am blending out a crease color that I want to be seen above my crease in that transition area, or for a just general transition brush, I use one of 3 brushes depending on my mood that day. I have the BK Beauty 201, the Sigma E40, which is in my Stephanie Marie Favorites set, and the Sigma E38, which is actually a new addition for them, and it's great if you have smaller eyes. I've actually been really, really enjoying this little E38 guy a lot lately. So these are great for crease blending and transition blending. These are my absolute favorites. So any one of these is great for that area depending on how large you like your brush. I have a small face, which means I have small eyes. So these are not too big. I don't like my brushes to be too big because if they are, everything's going to be one big muddy mess. And the curve of all of these brushes is, very similar. It's not too flat on the top. It's not too curved. It's just enough. It's the Goldilocks of curves for a blending brush for that area. So I have used the Sigma E25 for a really long time. This is the 4th brush in my Stephanie Marie Favorites set. It's just a really great tapered blending brush, very, very soft, just kind of does the work for you. They've since come out with the smaller version. This is the E27, and it is dirty because I used it today, which is really great if you have smaller eyes, and you can see what they look like when you turn them to the side. So they have a larger version and a smaller version now, and I do use them both when I am blending a shadow out into my crease, sometimes the outer corner as well. This brush from Sonia G is the Pencil 2 brush. I have been using to place color on the outer third or the outer V, and then just blending it out on the edges. And it's because of the stiffness yet the width of the pencil brush. So typical pencil brushes will place the color well, but they don't blend out the edges. And a lot of blending brushes are a little bit too floofy to blend things out exactly how I want them to. And this one just does it perfectly. So I love this brush for just placing that dark color exactly where I'm wanting it and blending out just the edge. This is the Sigma E33 and the Sigma E42. So you can see they're shaped kind of the same, both completely circular. The E42 here is clearly shorter, but it is also stiffer. I'm not sure if you can tell. There's some shadow in this one. This is a detailed diffused crease, whereas this one is a firm blending brush. So this is great for blending things out in a really precise way. It doesn't splay out too much, so it can keep things really confined to a certain area. I find that a lot of blending brushes, if you want things to look a certain way, they can be a little bit large and have everything kind of, muddying together and looking all blended together. So having really, really precise blending brushes is key for me. And this is one that just works really, really great. And this one is just great because it's soft and it goes in the crease really nicely and it's small. So I like having a small one. I just find having various brushes for various applications is key for me because I never know what I'm gonna want and when. There's something about this particular brush that I love for diffusing out my lower lash line. This is the Delium Tools Golden Triangle 780 pencil brush. I always go back to this one. I have tried more expensive ones. This is the one that I always end up using along the entirety of my lower lash line for those, you know, fleshy colors that I place. I just really, really like it. It's fluffy, it's soft, it never scratches me, and I can diffuse things further down or keep them more localized because it's got just enough of a point, but it's not too pointy. I love it. Okay, so I'm going to show you 4 different pencil brushes, and you're going to wonder why on earth I have and use 4 different pencil brushes. I know, but there are reasons, so just hear me out. So here are the 4 pencil brushes, and I'll go through each of them. So this first one is the largest of them all. This is the Sigma E30. This has been in my life for a really long time. I actually think I have like 4 or 5 of these. This is the one that I will use for a more diffused pencil application, and I can draw on my outer V and then smudge it out with a different type of blending brush, smudging brush. But this is typically what I will use, you know, to kind of start on my lower lash line, bring it up here, and get things exactly where I want them. This Delium Tools 718 tiny pencil brush. This was the teeny tiny one of the bunch. This one is the one that I will actually line my eyes with and get kind of close to my lash line. This is also what I will smudge out shadow liner with or smudge out pencil liner with. I typically like to smudge things out a little bit because sometimes liner can look a little harsh and my eyes are a little bit uneven. It just helps things look a little bit more even. And this is the brush that I use for that. It just works really, really well. And now these 2. So this one is from Rephr and this one is from Wayne Goss. They are very, very similar in size. And I find that they function really similarly, and I love them both. These I typically use to line with shadows when I want a more diffused eyeshadow look, kind of a smokier eyeshadow look. I can line underneath the eye, wing it out, take it very, very close to my lash line, and just kind of draw my eyeliner on. That's what I use these for. They're both really, really great eyeliner brushes. I do find that I can go a little bit darker with the Wayne Goss one. Now, if I want to line more precisely, I will use a slanted brush. Now, this one is from MAC, and I have one from NARS somewhere, but that is typically what I will use is a slanted brush like this. I will press it against my lash line and draw on my eyeliner like that. I will use an eyeshadow. Sometimes I'll even take it in a stick eyeshadow or an eyeliner and just draw on my eyeliner. Love a good slanted eyeliner brush. And I love having a very, very precise eyeliner brush. This is the Sigma E06. This is great if you just have a problem getting your line even from eye to eye. This just kind of helps get that pointed tip onto your liner. Sometimes I find with the regular slanted liner, I just can't get that point on when I'm trying to be really precise, and this gets it. This Sephora brush, number 15, the Pro Small Shadow Brush. I cannot even tell you how long I've had this brush. This is what I use all the time to highlight my brow bone and my inner corner with just a lighter shadow shade. This is it. This is the brush I've used for years and years and years, and they do still make it. So it's just easy. It picks up pigment and disperses it and blends it out really nicely. So when I apply cream, liquid, or stick eyeshadows, typically I'll apply them to my lid and I'll blend them out with a brush up into my crease, sometimes up into the transition area. And this is the brush that I use for that. This is the BK Beauty 203 brush. Cream, liquid, and stick shadows can sometimes start to set pretty quickly and be kind of hard to move. So you do need some density to your brush, but you also want it to be very soft so that it doesn't, scratch your eyelid or move your eyelid too much. And this brush just fits that bill so beautifully for me. I have tried numerous ones before and they've been okay. Some have been so soft that they really kind of will not move the product around enough. Some have been so dense that they're kind of scratchy and just don't feel good on the eye, and this one is just perfect. It's perfect for everything. So if I'm needing to clean my brushes off between uses, if I'm wanting to switch colors but use the same brush, whether it's a face brush or an eye brush, I will use a color switch. You literally just go like this and swirl your brush in it. The pigment still looks like it's there, but it won't come off. It's just, kind of like a stain. So it's a good temporary thing if you're wanting to play around with multiple products with the same brush. I almost forgot. I showed you guys how I stored my face brushes, but I didn't show you how I store my eye brushes. I'm really big on repurposing pretty candle jars, and I have 2 Nest candle jars where I keep my eye makeup brushes, and I do keep some of my smaller face brushes in this Jo Malone candle jar as well. They are sitting out because I just showed them to you, but they sit here on top of some things on my vanity, and that is just how I keep them. I find I can move them around very easily that way, and they look pretty too. So that's my eye makeup brush storage. Now my favorite thing to clean my brushes with is this Sigmagic Scrub Solid Brush Cleanser. Typically this white bar soap thing is up to the top. I have used this to where it's kind of worn down, but it is a solid cleanser. You attach this to your sink, and as everything is wet, you just scrub your brushes in it and then rinse your brushes under the sink. It is the easiest thing to do in the world. Your brushes just swirl around on these little rubber nodules here, and the soap does all the work, and then you just rinse them. So easy. I find I can clean my brushes so quickly with this. I do wish they would sell refills or something. I feel like this runs out very quickly. So if I'm not using this, or if I've run out and I don't have another one, my favorite soap to use is the Dr. Bronner's Pure Castile soap. I usually use the lavender version, and I use a scrubby matte in my sink. It takes a little bit more effort because the soap obviously isn't built into the scrubbies and the matte. This is so great at removing everything from my brushes, my sponges. So I just did a video all about my eyeshadow palettes. If you haven't seen that, go check that out. I will have it linked here and down below. And I would love to know what some of your favorite brushes are. So leave those in the comments for me. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, hit that subscribe button and become part of the family. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.